Hey everyone, it is Monday morning, meaning it's time for another Motivational Monday. I'm not in my normal location. I am here in Mechanicsburg with my friends Melissa Thompson and Merv Miller. And this building is called David's Place, right?
Yeah.
All right, David's Place. And I met them probably about a year ago when a conversation started happening around the release of persons from the Tri-County jail, and how there was a lot of miscommunication and a lot of mishappenings with people not getting rides and opportunities to succeed after they get out of jail, maybe not always having a hand up, actually probably a hand down in a lot of those situations, how it's happening. That's not a slam on our jail system or anything like that, but that is the reality of the world we live in. And hearing those conversations, there was this building that Merv, this started with you, I don't know how many years ago, because it's not just David's Place. If you know Mechanicsburg, the front of this is also a coffee shop. And what's that called?
Simple Comforts.
Simple Comforts, and that's right on here on, what's this?
Main and Sandusky.
Main and Sandusky in Mechanicsburg. So, great coffee shop. I've eaten here and had drinks before. Awesome. But what is the heart behind all of that? Or the beginnings of it?
Well, the heart of it is just to be a light to the community, to let Christ show through in all that we do. And it's been 5 years in November that we've had the building, and 4 years in December that we've had the coffee shop. And Chris, you may not even be aware of this, but we are, as of the 22nd of October, we will no longer be running the coffee shop.
All right.
We feel that God is leading us to lease that out. We have a local couple that want to take that over.
Awesome.
And that will free me up to do more here.
Yeah.
Which is
so what was here when you first, I know there was some dreams behind it, kind of like a halfway house, kind of a holding place for people who are in need, right?
That's been the goal, the end goal, but I think it's one of those things where everyone knows there's a need for that, but then when it comes to it, it's not in my backyard.
Yep.
And so we are still considering that.
Yep.
We're still open to God's leading, but
Trying to figure that out.
for right now, we just open the doors here, and
Yeah.
we're trying to kind of get.
So what is David's
Footing.
Place then? What is that? That's essential of it.
The David's Place actually stands for, it comes from David in the Bible, a man after God's own heart, and someone who's slaying giants with God's
awesome.
help.
That's
So
awesome.
that's where the name came from.
And what do you primarily do in this space? Like, what's the overall mission?
Just to let people know that there is hope, there is help, there's people that love them, Christ loves them,
Yeah,
and we're here for you whenever you're ready for help.
that's awesome. And Melissa, you came into the picture probably a little bit more than a year ago too, right? Around this ministry, but you had your own ministry going before that. That
Yep.
was kind of similar.
Yep.
Yeah, so what were you involved in and still are involved in?
So back in 2017, my mom and I started a nonprofit called To Whom It May Concern. That stemmed from prison ministry that we were doing at the Ohio Reformatory.
Up
And I
in
had been,
Marysville?
in Marysville. And I had been in there since April of 2015 doing some Kairos weekends.
Yep.
I started teaching Life Recovery Bible Study, which is a Bible-based 12-step recovery program. And then I started a mentor program,
Awesome.
which was 6-month one-on-one mentors called Life Builders. One day I was talking to a young lady during Bible study who was getting ready to be released. And I was really excited for her. I was like, you get to go home next week. I'm so pumped for you. Are you excited? And she just broke down and she's like, no, I'm going to die. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And she said, I'm going to die or I'm going to be back in prison. Like, there's no success for me on the outside.
Right.
And she was very similar to me, very, like, same age. We grew up in the same kind of area, same type of family dynamics, same family background. And when I left that day, I just had a breakdown in the parking lot, and I called my mom. I said, we have to help these women. Everything we're doing on the inside is great, but how do we help them on the outside? And so she had actually been praying about starting some kind of nonprofit, and when I brought that to her, she's like, maybe this is it. So we started To Whom It May Concern. And so our main goal was helping people coming home from the prison reintegrate back into society.
Yeah, so important.
So we'd work on these plans at the prison, and then it was developing, where are you going to live? How do you start working on custody of your children? Where can you get a job at? Does your crime allow you to get a job in that kind of a setting? Just the basics, so housing, jobs, transportation, can we connect you with the church, that kind of stuff. And so we met Merv, I think in 2018.
Okay.
My mom and I actually walked through this space when it was just studs. And we were like, yeah, it's great. Maybe one day.
Right.
And it wasn't the right time.
Right.
It was definitely not God's time.
Right.
And so got connected with Merv and Tammy, though. We used to live in Mechanicsburg, and so we got to know them really well, and we attend church together. And so we just kind of had developed that relationship. And at one point, we were like, why are we doing this separate? Why aren't we just doing this together?
Find a way to partner.
Right. Well, because his focus was men in jail, and ours was women in prison. As much as those seemed to not go together at the time, they go perfectly together. So it was July of last year, I think I took it to our board and said, why don't we take this on? Why don't we do this together? They said yes, and then a little over a year later, on August 1st of this year, we officially opened the building.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember, and I got to know these guys from the idea of this releasing of prisoners, inmates, at inconvenient times and without resources to get to where they need to go. A person gets released at noon on a Tuesday in Mechanicsburg, and they don't have money, a vehicle, a phone to call anybody. Where do they go if they don't have a ride? And so a lot of times you'd see them walk through town, and they might end up here at your coffee shop, or you might pick them up at a gas station and give them a ride. But having that conversation, it seemed like from there on, you guys just kind of exploded with this, because we came in here through a tour then, to your point, you talked when you said it was studs. There was more than studs, there was drywall the first time I saw it, but now it's really beautifully painted, awesome furniture, and a lot of that's been grants and community support, right? So what are some of the goals that you have with this space in place, and what do you guys want to see happen with the community? And maybe not even our kind. We talk about backyard. This is our backyard if you live in Urbana, but it's also the backyard of Union County and Madison County. So what's your goal? What do you hope to see come of this place?
I just want to see, for one, I want to see success. Again, for those that want it, I want to see enough support so that we can support our clients. And basically, just anything that the community needs, really. Just to be a light for Christ, and a place where people know they can come and tell their story, and someone's willing to listen, willing to love them, and willing to give them the help they need.
Yeah. But I think, reducing recidivism is probably the main goal. But we also want to work on some prevention stuff, because if we can help people early on, we can prevent them ending up in the jail. And so the recovery support meetings that we want to do, the Bible studies that we want to do, and some of them have kicked off, but we're still kind of working on getting their schedules worked out to have more meetings and Bible studies here. We've been talked to about mentor programs for kids, and we've got some ideas that we're looking into, because if we can work on the hearts of those kids and teach them who Christ is, hopefully they're not going to be calling us in 5 years from Tri-County saying, hey, I need a ride home, So to Merv's point, though, it's whatever we can do for the community and just helping everybody see the light and the hope of Christ. Because if that's not the center of it,
so what happens on a normal day? I mean, I know a big thing I heard from you before was rides, and just getting, because most of these people at Tri-County are not from Mechanicsburg, or they need to get to a court appearance, so what are you seeing, and how does what you're offering helping people?
Well, I think, and Melissa's better with statistics, but what percentage of the people being released from Tri-County were we transporting? Do you remember that? Is it like 30 to 40%.
I think the numbers when we originally had looked at them, I think it was 10% of their
okay.
clients were being transported by us,
Okay.
which is actually a pretty big number considering
How many are-
a small organization.
How many inmates are typically housed there?
I think it's around 180.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was over like an 8-month period, I think is the data that we had looked at. So 10% over, so that's several hundred people, you know. I think when I had looked it up not too long ago, early September, we only started capturing data in February. Prior to that, we didn't capture
And why
data.
is the data important?
For grants.
Yep.
So, because we're it's not all about money, but
No.
people need to see that there's a need. And so
Yeah.
we started tracking who are we helping, where are they going, what are their needs, because
Right.
that helps show people that there is a need in our
Well, it paints the
community.
picture.
It paints the picture.
Yeah, and again, I think, and we talked about this before, you know, I live in Urbana, so I don't drive past Tri-County Jail every day and remember that it's here. Let alone probably most of Mechanicsburg, because it's tucked in the corner of our county, right? And it's a Tri-County jail, so neither does Union County or Madison County. So it's a very forgotten, out of mind, out of sight problem, right? And so that data can really help remind people that this is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is happening.
Yeah.
This is not just the person walking down the street is just not a nuisance.
Right.
They've just been released from jail without the resources that they need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so in, I believe it was an 8-month period, we had 165 unique people that we had helped.
Wow.
There were some repeat people,
Sure.
repeat from the jail and then repeat as in
Right.
coming in here for services. But 165 people in 8 months is a lot.
That is.
And our top 4 counties are Franklin, Union, Madison, and Champaign County.
Right.
So Champaign's right up there. Most of that is Mechanicsburg and Urbana.
Mm-hmm.
And we capture data around where people go, you know, if we get them into sober living house or the caring kitchen. We've
Yep.
taken people to homeless shelters in Canton, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
We've worked with Sober Living America several times, got people down to Cincinnati for sober living. Volunteers of America, I think, has done some help with us, stuff like that. So we don't want to duplicate any resources that are already
Right.
going on.
You don't want to recreate the wheel.
Right.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. That's something we've been working hard at in Urbana and Champaign County as well. It's like, you don't need 100 food pantries, you need to have a couple that do it really well. And you don't need 100, you know, ride services, you just need a couple that can do it really well. Yeah. What is a success story for you? What have you seen? What have you heard? What's a testimony, a story that you've heard from somebody who has walked through these doors desperate? What is something that has, you know, broke your heart to remind you why you do this every day?
I know recently we had someone that we got into Sober Living America. He was in prison. He thought he was getting out. He had a holder, so they ended up at Tri-County. And the space wasn't quite finished yet, but I sat in here and talked with him for a while. He thought he had someone in Columbus to go to. Ended up he didn't. He did have a cell phone, which is more than most people have, so he called us back. This was on a Friday night, and my wife and I actually drove over to Columbus. He was in a laundromat. He said he'd been walking all day. He had blisters. He was just defeated. And we actually went over. We put him up in a hotel for 2 nights. The following Monday, we took him and got him checked into Sober Living America. And he just recently, I've got him on Facebook, he just recently got a certificate that he graduated.
Awesome.
He's got his license back, he's got his relationship with his daughter back, he's got...
He's a supervisor at work,
He's a
too, right?
supervisor at work.
That's awesome.
So there are a couple of those stories. I know Ashley had one that a girl she was working with, she got her children back, she got a license back.
That's awesome.
So that's...
Yeah.
And she had lost like a medical license because of her addiction, and she was able to get her medical license back,
wow.
which does not happen very
Yeah.
often. And now she's also a certified peer supporter,
That's
working at a peer recovery center,
That's
which
awesome.
is huge. Yeah.
Man, that's so cool. I mean, that's why you do it, right? I mean, you see the turnaround that when someone might be so desperate they're defeated at the end, and there is this lifeline, there is this life preserver here, and someone grabs it,
Yeah.
right? And that their stories change.
Well, and again, that's just, you know, that's just the only thing, Jesus is the only one who can do that. And, you know, everyone's got that emptiness and they're looking to fill it with something.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get filling it with Jesus,
Yeah.
it's real. And
Yeah.
it's tangible.
That's awesome. So, how can people? What do you need? What's your support look like? What do you need? What are your holes? How can people throughout the county, maybe who else are watching in Clark County or Madison or wherever? How do you need support from them? What do you guys need?
So I would say, you might have a different opinion. I don't know. We need volunteers. One of the biggest things we do is giving rides, and Tri-County is significantly more men than it is women, and we do try really hard for it to be man and man and woman and woman. We have 3 women drivers and we have 1 man, and so he is. And we don't mind doing rides, and he will help us out if there's a man that we're not comfortable with. He'll take over for us. But male drivers is huge. Afternoon and evening hours drivers is really important, because sometimes people do get released after we're closed. We've been able to make connections with people. We've had other people in the community call and say, hey, someone's at the gas station or the library. Can you guys help out? But having other drivers that are kind of like on call would be huge. People that would be willing to help facilitate Bible studies and recovery meetings would be really important.
Yeah.
We have 4 main team members here, and we just can't do it all.
Sure.
We want to, but
Yeah.
we would be more successful with more volunteers.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you have a different opinion.
No, I think you're right on.
Yeah. So how do people get in contact with you? How do they find you? What do they do to get involved?
So we're on Facebook, and
what are you on Facebook?
so it's David's Place on Facebook, or To Whom It May Concern on Facebook. We hand out wristbands when we see people that have our phone number on it. So like anytime I give a ride, I always have bands on and I hand them out to riders. And then we have a website, twimcohio.org, and davids-place.org.
Okay, perfect. So this is Motivational Monday. So how would you motivate, based on your all mission and vision for life, what would you say to motivate our viewers and listeners? I mean, to do this kind of work, to get passionate about something, and what is it that motivates you, and that you would say you should try some of this?
To me, it's just getting outside the walls of our church. And I was guilty for years of just putting my hind end in a church pew on Sunday and thinking I did God a favor.
Right.
And there's so much more to that. And it's so much more rewarding when you get involved, whether it's with those with addiction, or whether it's with the elderly, or whether it's with young folks. It's such a blessing just to give. Is my thought.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure your life was changed because someone gave to you, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you see that, you want to give that and remember that. And it is easy to forget again, out of sight, out of mind. But it is to get engaged, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Melissa?
I would say, there are a lot of naysayers about what we do, but if people are honest with themselves, everybody in some way, shape, or form has been affected by addiction. And, Jesus left the 99 to help the one, and if we can even help that one person, then we have been successful. And, I think it's worth getting out of your comfort zone to see what you can do. And I always tell people, because they're like, you go to prison? That sounds crazy. And I'm like, you know what? I thought it was going to be terrifying, and it's one of the best things that I could have done, and it changed my life.
Right.
And even if you don't want to go inside the prison walls or inside the jail walls, there's things that you can do out here to walk alongside somebody to help them be successful.
Yeah.
And you don't know if you don't give it a try.
That's right.
So.
Well, I think there's physical prisons, and then there's spiritual prisons. And there's a lot more people walking in those than we realize.
That's fair.
And we can always help break people out of those
Yeah.
as well, and for good, right? Because I mean, you talk about the idea of not going back to jail, not going back to prison. You used a big fancy word for that.
Recidivism.
Yep.
It took me a really long time to learn that word.
Recidivism.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep, it's a good one.
That's a Scrabble word, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So I think it's really cool what you guys are doing here. I think it's obviously inspired by the Holy Spirit. There's something bigger going on here. Brought you two together. There's people who are rallying around you. Obviously, you could always use more. But it's obviously an opportunity that God's working in this part of the world. So thank you guys for talking to us and sitting down. And hopefully you guys at home are motivated to get involved and engaged in some way. Again, it doesn't have to be the prison system, but it could be. And it could be here at David's Place, or it could be leading a Bible study, or it could be helping a young person who needs some hope as well. There's, again, a lot of people out there who are struggling, and so we have to be there as lifelines, to remind them that Jesus is our hope. So thank you guys. Thank you, and we will see you all next week.